Just how good can this tight end room be this year for Arkansas? Let's talk about that. Welcome into episode 39 of the Woo Pig Weekly podcast in the Home Field Studio, your weekly source for all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Episode 39 is brought to you by Home Field. Home Field is home of premium vintage collegiate apparel, and you can use promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off your first order. And I'll tell you, they've got some primetime vintage Arkansas gear. We've had plenty of time to check it out as they're one of our newest sponsors here. Go check them out. They've got some really cool stuff, especially tailored to the University in Arkansas with some classic logos and things of that nature. So they're really good. Go use that promo code, get you 15% off your order. Help support the podcast, help us help you. So, that's what we're all about here. So, we'll start off here as it's yet another somber day here in Razorback Nation, as earlier this week the news came out. Former Arkansas running back Alex Collins passed away earlier this week due to a motorcycle accident down in Florida, where he's from, where he was living currently. And, you hate to see it. It's not been a great summer for former Arkansas players / commits, with Ryan Mallett earlier this summer, as well as Chris Smith, and then Deion Stutes, the recruit that was expected to come in next year's class. You hate to see guys kind of in their prime of their life, get that taken away. I can remember just, Alex Collins was in my freshman class. Came in the same year, hung out with him a little bit freshman year. And it's just crazy. So, what's your thoughts here, Seth?
Well, it's just a sad situation. Thoughts and prayers to his whole family, his friends, teammates, former teammates. I mean, I know he had made a lot of connections across the NFL. Obviously, had big connections at the university. I know university brought him back anytime they could to come hang out during games, things of that nature. It's just, he was such a nice guy. It's just horrible, man. Just some of the good ones always go too soon, it seems like. But he was so fun to watch when he played. I know there's been a lot of highlights going around just kind of in memory of him. And obviously that 4th and 25 play is one of the most memorable. It's just such a cool play to remember. And I think there's going to be even more people kind of putting an asterisk next to that play as their favorite play of all time kind of thing, things like that, especially when we play Ole Miss. That always gets brought up. I think there's going to be even more weight to that play now that people remember it for and things like that. So it's just such a sad situation. It's been a really kind of a rough year, honestly, for Hog fans and for Hog fans, Hog players' families, I guess I should say. It's always sad to see, like you said, players go way too early, losing people in their prime time of their life, things like that. It's just horrible, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. And, I saw an article yesterday that was talking about, just like you mentioned, such a great person. I don't remember which season of his it was specifically, but, if you remember, when he had scored touchdowns and whatnot, he'd hold up the double peace signs. I didn't realize that until I read an article that he actually did that in honor of Raleigh Williams, who, got injured, and he was doing that to honor him. So, just I think a great loss for not only Razorback Nation, but for his family, for, just everybody to see a young athlete, young player, cut down in his prime. So, like Seth said, our thoughts and prayers are going towards his family, and, hopefully they can, get through this and, be able to learn to cope with the loss that they just suffered and everything. So we'll try to continue on here with our preseason award watch list updates. So, with all the talented players Arkansas has on its roster this year, the award watch lists, nominees, and whatnot keep rolling in. So KJ Jefferson has picked up another award watch list, and now he is on the Manning Award watch list with, that name tells you all you need to know for that is that's the award given to the nation's best quarterback. So, I think that's easy to believe for all Arkansas fans. I'm not shocked at all. I think he's been a guy that's been very underrated the past few years, just because, in a sense of, he plays for Arkansas, not, not saying anything against Arkansas, but if he was at a bigger, maybe more primetime program, he'd get more recognition for what he does. But hopefully this year, it's the year he can kind of break out in a sense and, show everybody what Arkansas is about, with the help of Rocket, who has some additional watch lists as well. So he's picked up the Walter Camp Award watch list, which goes to the Collegiate Football Player of the Year, and the Doak Walker Award watch list, which goes to the nation's best running back. That the Doak Walker Award is, a very familiar award for Arkansas fans, as, several running backs throughout the past have been on that list. A few have won it. So, Rocket's in some good company there. And then you got Chris Paul Jr., our sophomore linebacker that, is primed to take a next step in his career this year with Arkansas as being one of the starters and leaders on that defense. He's been nominated for the Butkus Award, which goes to the best linebacker in the country. And then, not necessarily an award list, but you can't forget to talk about Isaac Tesla, who has been named to Bruce Feldman's 2023 College Freaks list, which I think that tells you enough there what kind of hype he's getting going into the season. So, give us your take on, all these new award watch lists that Arkansas players have been named on.
Yeah, man. I think obviously KJ getting named to the Manning Award watch list is a no-brainer. It's a very similar award to the O'Brien. So I'm not surprised to see him on both those lists at all. And then seeing Rocket getting added to the Doak Walker makes a lot of sense. Not really surprised about that either. The Walter Camp Award watch list for him, that one's not necessarily a surprise, but definitely a big honor, because that is a very prestigious award. There's more that goes into that than just your performance on the field even. So having him named to that award watch list is really, really cool. And then, to your point, somebody we hadn't mentioned in the past around some of the award watches is Chris Paul Jr., and he's somebody that I really am excited to see kind of step up. I think he is going to be that kind of on-field general for us this year. There's a couple of the guys that I think will kind of share that load with him, but I expect him to be one of the main guys, kind of leading the defense, getting guys into position, kind of those linebacker duties that we've had filled over the years between Bumper Pool, Grant Morgan obviously comes to mind. So I look at him to really kind of fill that role. And so I'm not surprised to see him on that list at all either. And he had some outstanding highlights last year. I mean, he was really, really flying to the ball, especially late in the year. He was really kind of clicking on all cylinders. I think he understood the defensive scheme, and he was getting progressively better at reading offenses and being able to predict where the offenses were about to go. It seemed like he got to where he was right there with Drew Sanders on all those plays, always in the right time at the right place at the right time. So really excited to see him on that watch list, and really excited to see him play this year. And then, like you said, Isaac Tesla, man, if any of you guys, our listeners, are active on social media, then you're going to see some of his highlights in and out of camp. It doesn't make sense, some of the catches he's able to make. I think there's a lot to be said for his catch radius is going to make him a huge target for KJ, just with the trust factor that you get it close to him, he's going to be able to get that ball no matter, if you're a little behind target or a little ahead of him, he's going to find a way to catch up to it and make that play. So he's already kind of turning heads just from fall camp highlights and things of that nature. And so it's exciting to have some guys like that are already kind of making waves, as they say.
That's very true. And, talking about our wide receivers, we had our breakdown last week, where we went through, talked about we have a lot of depth where, you hate to see it early already, but Arkansas has already taken a small dent in its depth. As last Saturday, the Arkansas had their first scrimmage, where unfortunately Sam Mbake took a hard hit during the scrimmage, and it was announced a couple of days later that he's going to be out for the season due to a knee injury. There's no specifics on what exactly with his knee. I mean, you can assume all you want, but we're not going to put anything out there that we don't know is true. And so, that hurts because, early, I think after that scrimmage, Pittman said Sam Mbake was a guy that he expected to be on the field a lot, played 90 miles an hour fast, really improved every aspect of his game, according to Pittman. So you hate to see that happen to a guy that was expected to be a key core contributor to this team. But like we mentioned last week, we've got a ton of depth there at wide receiver. So, you've got to go that next man up mentality and wish for the best recovery out of Sam.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I hate that for him. Hope he gets well soon. I know knee injuries, yeah, it's always kind of a question mark is if they're going to be able to come back at 100% what they were beforehand. So hope everything turns out well. I know medical science has come a long way, and a lot of these guys are able to bounce back from those injuries, no problem. So wish him the best in his recovery.
Very true. And so now we'll jump over to our position group breakdown of the week this week, where we will talk about our tight ends, which this is another group similar to our wide receivers that is a little bit of an unknown, but I think could be really good for Arkansas this year, especially with the return of Dan Enos, who, likes his tight end, the play Seth just talked about, that 4th and 25. One of the best tight ends Arkansas has had in a long time, Hunter Henry. Well, you know what? He was here when, guess who? Dan Enos was our offensive coordinator. So I think that just kind of gives you signs of what to expect out of this tight end room, not only from a play calling perspective, but from a talent perspective. Several coaches have been high on, several of these players coming in this first few weeks of fall camp. And so we'll jump right in here with your one really returning guy that played a little bit for Arkansas last year, and redshirt freshman Ty Washington. He's a 6'4", 247-pound tight end that played in 5 games for Arkansas last season, with having 1 reception for 17 yards and 1 touchdown. And if you remember correctly, that was in our bowl game versus Kansas, where that was after Trey Knox decided to sit out and then ultimately enter the transfer portal, where Ty Washington stepped up and actually scored for Arkansas and kind of showed some flashes of what we can expect this year. So he's a guy that, I bet we could see a lot from this year, especially with that Dan Enos offense.
Yeah, he's somebody that at least already has some chemistry previously with KJ, and is familiar with Pittman and the whole crew. Obviously, it's going to be a kind of a newer offense that they're going to have to maybe forget some things and relearn some things. But I definitely expect Ty Washington to be involved from the get-go, especially early on. I think there's a couple other guys we're going to mention here that are going to be instant impact type players that have gotten a ton of hype already. But I really expect Ty Washington to kind of be in that tight end rotation where you've maybe got, 2, 3, maybe 4 at most really solid guys that you kind of rotate in and out depending on your set, if you're kind of tight end heavy for run plays, things of that nature. But don't be surprised if there's 2 or 3 tight ends on the field and we're passing to him either. So, I mean, Dan Enos had a lot of plays in his book when he was here previously that you'd have a lot of tight ends on the field, and it would actually be like a shady bootleg play where one of those guys would actually get the look. So I'm excited to see how Enos uses these guys. And obviously, I think Ty Washington is going to be someone that's going to have an impact early on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's exciting to see. And like you mentioned, there's not a faster hype train building up right now than the one that's for freshman Luke Haas. He is a guy that has been raved about in camp so far. He's a 6'3", 242-pound tight end that has, that 242 he's been able to put on after enrolling early in January, getting a head start in the weight room and going through summer practice and workouts and everything. And when you just look at his high school number productions, he had 35 receptions for 597 yards for 9 touchdowns. He rushed for 1 touchdown and also caught 3 2-point conversions in high school. And he's a guy that, I've read, numerous articles that talk about he has an incredible work ethic that just comes in every day, works hard, works to build that chemistry with KJ, and has also caught the eye of all the other tight ends as well. As they've said, they haven't seen such an impressive freshman tight end in a long time or almost ever. So I think that kind of shows you what we can expect. I've heard some people say he could be a freshman All-American this year and could have a lot of playing time and possibly start for Arkansas this year. So I think that's some high praise, and, that hype train is on full blast there. So, he's a guy that I think we could see some big things out of this year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the perfect storm combination of him coming in a little bit early, getting some weight on him, and really getting the most bang for his buck out of his time with Enos, kind of from day one, with Dan Enos being more of a tight end utilizer than Kendall Browse was. I think it's kind of just the perfect scenario where Luke Haas is coming in as a freshman. He's not going to have to relearn an offense, forget an old offense to relearn a new one kind of situation. It's going to be, Dan Enos can take him from day one and kind of mold him into the tight end he wants him to be. And just from the things we've read and some of the interviews we've seen from some of these other tight ends where they were talking about Luke Haas and how much he's already, frankly, just kind of showing out in practice. I think the potential is really there for him to be a standout SEC tight end. Not Brock Bowers level, maybe not quite to that extent, but Brock Bowers, Hunter Henry, some of those big time names like that really come to mind, and that's what's getting tossed around with Luke Haas's name. So that is really exciting to see. I don't really know how else you can describe it other than that. And like I said, I really think it's just kind of the perfect matchup right now with Enos coming in and Luke Haas coming in, with him having somebody to really develop over the next couple of years. And maybe it won't be year one, but you got to think at some point this guy's going to be a big impact player for Arkansas.
Yeah, I can't agree more there. And like you said, that I think that hype train is going to just keep growing. And, on that note, take into account, those first few games might not be crazy big numbers just because he is still a freshman. He will be acclimating to the college game that plays at a faster level than high school. But I think you look at middle of the season, near towards the end of the season, you could start seeing some big time plays and big time contributions from him. And another guy that we'll talk about here that could have some big time contributions for Arkansas this season is redshirt sophomore Var'Keyes Gums, the transfer from North Texas that's 6'3", 242 pounds. He had 34 receptions for 458 yards and 5 touchdowns. He set the single season records for tight end receptions and yards at North Texas. A guy that was a little back and forth on Arkansas, but ultimately decided on Arkansas. Another guy that has gotten some praise throughout camp and could be another key contributor. Like Seth mentioned, us running 2 to possibly 3 tight end sets. We're going to need all these guys that are coming in, getting the practice in. And so he's another guy that also brings a little bit of experience as well. Being in college last season, maybe not to the SEC level, but understands the college game and was able to contribute at a decently high level by setting those records at North Texas. So he's another guy that I think there's some excitement around.
Yeah, I completely agree with that take. And I think the biggest thing about these 3 guys that we've mentioned so far is they're all athletic. They're very athletic tight ends. It's not like we're running some big tubbies out there that can't run or anything of that nature. These guys can fly. They're all big bodies, or at least fairly big bodies. I know we've got some wide receivers that are kind of hybrid tight end bodies as well that we've talked about in the past, but these guys stack right up there as well. My one, I don't really want to say concern, but the one thing that I am curious to see how it plays out in conference play against, these Alabama defenses, things like that. How well are these guys able to maintain their blocks? How well are they able to chip block, whatever they're asked to do? That's the thing we always get kind of hung up on, how fast these guys are, how well they can catch, what their catch radius is, their verticals, how, can they go get those jump balls in the end zone, things like that. I think a lot of people forget that a critical role for a lot of these tight ends is, hey, can you run block? How well can you run block? Or are you able to hold up against some really talented linebackers and defensive ends and those kind of hybrid defensive end pass rush guys that a lot of these defenses in the SEC have. So I'm excited to see where I think that's going to have a key factor on who is really your day one starters. Obviously, I think all these guys are athletic and can go catch a ball. I think a lot of the decision is probably going to come down to who can actually run block the best. More to come there, obviously, but that's one thing I'm curious to see. I think we've got a ton of athletes. I just hope we can utilize them on both sides of the ball, the run game and the pass game.
That's a good point because, if last season was any indicator that, Pittman and Arkansas is going to want to focus on that run game. And why would you not when you got like guys like KJ and Rocket in the backfield that, are super talented and have the ability to just, if you give them the space, can hit that home run play for you. And so we'll go down through some of these other tight ends we've got as another guy is redshirt freshman Hunter Talley. He's a 6'4", 251-pound tight end that didn't record any stats from last year. He's a guy that came in last year, switched from quarterback to tight end, so a little bit of a transition guy. He'll add some depth to this tight end room here. And then another guy to talk about is senior Francis Sherman, 6'3", 247. He's a transfer from Louisville who had 1 reception for 13 yards. Just another guy that is a depth guy for Arkansas that, can come in and maybe give you some more of a blocking style tight end that is not asked to do a lot in the catching and passing game, but can give you those blocks for Rocket or KJ, whoever it may be. A few other guys here, freshman Maddox Lassiter. He's 6'3", 238. He is a preferred walk-on that he also played multiple positions in high school. I believe he played quarterback, a few defensive positions. So just another guy adding depth to this tight end room. You got freshman Luke Johnston, 6'5", 231. Another preferred walk-on that had 15 receptions for 141 yards and a touchdown in high school. So a little bit on the bigger size with being in that 6'5" range. And then another guy that has gotten a lot of attention coming out of high school, not a ton of, reference in fall camp, but, give him a little bit, and I think you'll start hearing his name more often, is freshman Shamar Easter. He's 6'5", 223. He was the number 1 player in Arkansas coming out of high school and also the number 6 tight end nationally. He played both tight end and wide receiver in high school, so that gives you an idea. He's big, but he's also fast. And so I think he's a guy that can come in and contribute as well. So, give us your thoughts here on Shamar Easter.
Yeah, I mean, everybody raved about him in high school, man. Some of his highlights from high school were pretty impressive. Just the size difference he had amongst a bunch of other high schoolers. I mean, he looked like a man amongst boys, kind of the case. But anyways, I'm excited to have him on the hill. I haven't heard a ton about him from training camp, kind of like you're saying, fall camp. And I think he's probably one of those guys that may be a little bit behind the curve compared to like Luke Haas. He came in the summer, not early enrollee. So maybe he has a little bit of ground to make up from learning the playbook, just kind of understanding the ins and outs of the style of offense Enos wants to play. But don't be surprised if he improves by leaps and bounds. I mean, all the intangibles there, like you said, he's big, he's tall, he's fast. He's versatile as far as tight end / wide receiver goes, so you can line him up multiple different places if you need to. I think the biggest thing is he just adds more depth. I mean, more talented depth, especially. I think that's one thing that's been such kind of an eye opener in this year's team compared to maybe some teams in the past. Is at some of these positions where we maybe only had like 1 or 2 really talented guys on the roster at that position group. It seems like this year we've got more than that at almost every position. We've covered a few so far between quarterbacks. We've definitely got more than just KJ now. I mean, I think Jacoby Criswell, from what I've heard, has really solidified himself as the number 2 quarterback, and that there's not much of a step down if he has to play if KJ's hurt, that the offense is still going to click well with him in. That's a great example. Obviously, our running back room is loaded. Wide receivers are extremely deep. Some unknowns there, and then kind of the tight end room's the same example. There's a few unknowns, but there's a lot of guys here that are known for their athleticism, their speed, things like that. So I think the depth, the talent level across your entire depth chart is better than we've had it in years past, and I think that's going to do nothing but good things for the Hogs, especially if we unfortunately, maybe find ourselves with an injury bug off and on this year. You've got guys you can turn to that really do have the potential and step up and be that next man. I think Shamar Easter is a prime example of somebody that could kind of be that situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think one thing you've got to consider too, when you're thinking about Shamar Easter and guys like this, a callback to a previous episode, if you remember, for you returning listeners, when we had our interview with Drew Morgan, he actually mentioned going up against Shamar Easter in 7-on-7, and being an Arkansas guy, Razorback, he really, and with Shamar being a commit, he mentioned he really wanted to see what this kid was all about and kind of essentially measure him up and see. And he said, sure enough, he's the real deal. He's got the size, the speed to be another great tight end here at Arkansas. And so that's coming from a former Arkansas player that he knows what he's talking about, had a stint in the pros. So you really, and is currently coaching. So, he really knows what he's talking about. And that I think that can just give you even more confidence in what he can do once he develops and picks up this playbook. Another guy that we'll talk about here is redshirt senior Nathan Bax, coming back, I believe, with his COVID year. He's 6'4", 250. Last year, he had 2 receptions for 5 yards. Another guy that has gotten a few raves about in camp. Another guy that he'll be some more depth issues or add to our depth here and could add in some run blocking. And, maybe he's taking a step forward in his development with Dan Enos and will be a more contributing factor in the passing game. We'll just have to see. But, I kind of, really like where our tight end room is sitting at so far this season.
Yeah, I do too. I think Nathan Bax will actually get quite a bit of playing time. Whether it just be kind of as that 2 or 3 tight end set, he comes in there to kind of be an extra lineman, essentially. I think that's a lot of what he did last year for us. I would expect to see some more of that this year with maybe a few plays going his way. But overall, like you said, the whole tight end room as a whole, I think there's so much potential here, especially with guys like Luke Haas that they're already making monstrous waves, and he's a freshman. I mean, he's a big freshman. So kind of following the theme of some of the players that we've received commitments from or had come in already that are a little bit ahead of the curve just from the body size and their development physically. So that's always a good thing to see. But from top to bottom, there's going to be a lot of competition level here. I think you've got 4, maybe 5 guys that really do have a shot to kind of play significant snaps, whether it be in pass protection or pass catching, whatever the case may be. I'm excited to see how Dan Enos uses them. I mean, I don't really know how else to put it other than that. I think we're just going to have to kind of wait and see how often they utilize the tight end position. I think it's a position that KJ could really lean on, especially if there's some uncertainty early on with the wide receivers. I think there's a couple of tight ends here he could really maybe connect with if maybe some of those connections don't develop as early with the wide receivers as we may want, but there's options everywhere. I mean, you've got AJ Green in the backfield that's a hybrid, slot receiver nearly, with his speed and catching ability. So there's going to be guys that KJ can throw to, even if the wide receiver room is a little bit shaky at first. So it's exciting to have that level of options and talent and some kind of hype level guys that you're already hearing about from fall camp. So this is a great position to be in. And it's always exciting early season to kind of what if, but I think there's a couple guys on this list that could really be the next Hunter Henry type player for us.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think for me, it's just getting excited to get back to that traditional, in a sense, ground and pound Arkansas offense that can also utilize tight ends very well. And, we've got the personnel to do it. I feel like, we've said it, numerous times, almost like, episode day in and day out. KJ is clearly one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Some people are underrating him. And, sure, let them go ahead and do it and find out what he's all about. This year could be a big year just for Arkansas and this entire offense. If we solidify our starting for receivers, like we just said, this tight end talent in this tight end room here that 4 or 5 guys can contribute. I think that's a good sign for the direction of this program and what Sam Pittman could do at Arkansas this year. And so we'll continue with our breakdowns next week, and we'll let you know where we're going next week. And before we jump into some Arkansas basketball news and cover their rest of their European tour, we'll take a quick ad break here, and we'll be right back.
You know what I like? I like to be comfortable. I also love representing my favorite sports teams. And in the Clutch, I am able to have the best of both worlds. In the Clutch Apparel is your one-stop shop for all things sports. They have officially licensed gear from all your favorite teams and players from the NHL, MLB, NFL, and more. They have sports classic tees from yesteryear and beyond. Check out their full website in the link down below. When you enter the promo code Variety Sports, you get 10% off everything site-wide. feel comfortable with your sports apparel and go over to their website now at endtheclutch.com. And don't forget to use our code Variety Sports to get 10% off.
And we are back now from our quick break here, and we'll talk Arkansas women's basketball, where they, finished up their European tour here with 2 additional games, where in game 2 versus another Croatian team, they got the win 71-49, where Jersey Wolfenbarger had 13.6 rebounds and 2 steals. And then game 3, they went over to Greece, where they played the University of Regina in Greece, got the win there 100-61, where Sasha Goforth had 13 points, where she went 6 of 6 for shooting and had 2 blocks. That's a name, if that sounds familiar. She's a player that came to Arkansas, kind of had some medical issues and had to sit out, but, is healthy enough to be back for Arkansas this year. Exciting things going on for Coach Neighbors and this Arkansas women's basketball team. And not to mention, while they're over in Europe, they got a commitment from a player in the 2024 class, a 5'9" guard that is from Holland in Europe. So, going over there and picking up commitment over there just makes those wins and everything so much better. She's a player that averaged 15 points with 2.4 assists in the European Championships earlier this summer. So getting some talent, not just in Arkansas, but worldwide here. So, give us your thoughts here, Seth.
Yeah, her name's Phoenix Stoughton, I believe it is. So that's going to be a fun one to pronounce. I'm going to get tongue-tied on that a ton next year. But anyways, I thought that was a pretty cool pickup, getting somebody from Holland. I think that'll have a lot of social media story potential, things like that. I'll be interested to see if she becomes kind of one of those fan favorite type players just due to where she's from. So that's really cool. Obviously, it's good to get a couple more wins during that European tour, all of them being convincing wins, especially game 1 of that European tour. I mean, mercy. But anyway, so the offense so far looks like it's clicking. Granted, nobody really knows what the competition level was like, but it's always a good thing to have those girls build their confidence early, see the ball go through, and just kind of start building that offensive chemistry. So nothing but exciting things coming from Coach Neighbors, like you said.
Yeah, I think there's some hype with this program. Of course, the SEC is always going to be a gauntlet when you've got South Carolina and LSU, 2 of the top tier programs in women's basketball from last season, and, programs that have been built up. So, all we can hope to do is compete with those programs and hopefully, give the conference a run for their money with, what we can do and see some improvement from last year. That's all you can ask for. So
Gotta
now
keep
we'll
growing
jump.
it.
Yep. And so we'll jump over to some Arkansas soccer, where Arkansas had their final exhibition game against SIUE, where Arkansas took this match 6-0, where you had Patricia Sogos with the first goal at the 40-minute mark. And then you also had freshman Bellafield and Talia Spain with 2 additional goals that were the 3 freshmen that scored. And then you had returnees forwards Sophia Aragon, Anna Potajo, and Ava Tankersley with the other 3 goals for Arkansas. So I think it's safe to say this is going to be an exciting Arkansas team to watch this year. If you just look at it for the SEC preseason watch list, Arkansas has several players on that list. You've got forward Kylie Delaney, midfielder Bay Franklin, midfielder Ellie Potajo, midfielder Mackenzie Malum, forward Anna Potajo, and forward Ava Tankersley. And yes, we do have a set of sisters on this team that, I think that makes this even more exciting to watch, that this is not only a fun Razorback team, but also a family affair going on with this Arkansas team. So they are picked to finish first in the SEC this season. So, what are your thoughts here, Seth? And I know you mentioned it last week, ready to become a big-time soccer fan for Arkansas.
Yeah, it's awesome to be picked finish first, but I think that comes with a lot of pressure as well. So I'm excited to see how well they're able to kind of handle that pressure and if they're able to perform to the expectations that are placed upon them. So that's going to be kind of a big story to watch as the year goes on. And then obviously, like you said, the sisters that are playing together, that's kind of a cool thing. We've seen that on football occasions. I think we had obviously the Morgan brothers. I don't remember if they crossed over, but one year. Say that again.
The Henry brothers.
Yep, the Henry brothers, obviously the Allen brothers. So there's kind of been some cool stories like that throughout the years. So, they played together as kids, and they've got a ton of chemistry playing together. So that only bodes well for the Hogs. So that's really cool to see as well. But I'm excited to kind of get into it and see if they perform to the expectation level that's placed on them, man. That's really what I'm looking to see. If they can finish first in the SEC, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be big time. And, if history is an indicator, this Arkansas team, is traditionally year in and year out really good. So their first match is coming up tomorrow at 7:00. We'll recap that again near the end of the show. But, if you don't have anything going on tomorrow, go catch the first soccer match of the season that actually counts towards the record. So we'll jump over now as we are finishing up here with some Arkansas baseball news with a former player, a guest, a friend of the show that we've had on before, Kevin Copps. He has been promoted to the AAA El Paso Chihuahuas of the Padres organization. So he's just one step closer there to the big leagues. He's right there. This is his final stop before, and hopefully when he gets called up to the majors. But he finished his season so far in AA this year with a 2.63 ERA with 67 strikeouts and 54 2/3 innings pitched. And then a really key thing that I think really had to do with him getting called up was since July 1st, he had an ERA of 0.0 in 14 innings pitched with 17 strikeouts and 3 saves. Are those incredible numbers or what, Seth?
Dude, you can't get any better as a pitcher. I mean, it's unreal having 17 strikeouts across 14 innings and then allowing 0 runs. It's just nuts. I mean, the tacking on the 3 saves is just icing on the cake. But I think I don't think this comes as a surprise to any Hog fans with how good Kevin was in his senior season. I mean, golly, we just kind of rode him. He really carried us that year, frankly. And I think there was some speculation that maybe he was too old to really make it in the minors all the way up to the majors. I think there was some people kind of doubting he'd even make it to AAA just from his age and things of that nature. But we've had him on the show. The guy's work ethic is kind of on a different level, frankly. So I am not surprised to see him rise up the rankings of the minors so fast at all. I mean, I think most of us Hog fans kind of knew it was going to happen, frankly. So it's exciting to see that. And like you said, I think that run since July has really kind of propelled him. He's had a great month and a half. He's such a likable guy, such a great pitcher. He's got some really great swing and miss pitches. He's just fun to watch. Is really all you can say about him. And the cool thing is he's able to stay in Texas. I think he was playing with San Antonio, their AA affiliate. So not having to move too far to go play for the Chihuahuas. So that's kind of cool to see as well. I think he's got some family down in Texas. So that's a good thing. They'll probably be able to still come to some of his games off and on. So hopefully he'll still be able to have a pretty good support group and make that jump to the majors, man. I know everybody's going to be celebrating when that happens. I'm sure it's going to happen at some point, especially if there's an injury or anything like that with the Padres. He's going to get called up quick.
Yeah. And I think you said it, being Hog fans, we all know what the talent was. And I think for us Hog fans, it wasn't a matter of if, just when he was going to make that jump and make this progress. It's only been a couple seasons since he's been at Arkansas that, and just that quickly is already up to AAA ball, right there on the cusp of making it to the show. So, we wish him the best of luck. If you get a chance, go check out our interview we did with him. Really cool guy, really down to earth, really, helps you understand what he goes through as an athlete and, how he dealt with injury. And, it's a great story. So if you get a chance, go check out that episode we have. And so we'll jump over to some upcoming events as we're wrapping up here. We've got Arkansas women's soccer versus Arkansas State tomorrow. So starting off the season with an in-state matchup at 6 p.m. So, go check it out. I think it's going to be an exciting beginning to the season, and not only that, but also with an in-state opponent. That'll be some exciting things. And then you've got Arkansas women's volleyball getting ready to kick off as they have an exhibition versus Missouri State on August 19th at 2 p.m. And then Arkansas soccer will have their second game of the year versus Oregon at 6:30 p.m. on August 24th next week. So go check out all these Arkansas events you can, get to if you don't have anything going on. And, we're just barely over 2 weeks away from football season being here, and we're getting ever closer, and it's getting so exciting. And, I think there's a lot of buzz around the state for, what the football season could hold.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. The potential for this year is just off the charts. I mean, potential both ways. Realistically, I think there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, I don't want to sit here and call games or anything like that, but I think 6-6 really is the floor. I think if we have just a fallout year and go anything less than 6-6, that's definitely a disappointment. I think the ceiling is very likely 10-2. With you got some coin tosses in there. It could be even better than that, just depending on how things shake out. But anywhere between 6-6, 10-2, I think it really could be a great year. I think this is we've talked about it before. I think this is the year that we really got the best chance to beat Alabama, which would be amazing, kind of right here before the conference games all take a huge shift in who we play each year in 2024. We don't play Alabama in 2024. So it'd be really, really nice to go out with a win in our string of consecutive losses we've had since 2007. But anyways, it's going to be an exciting year. Things are starting to take an uptick, man. You're starting to see some events happen. And like you said, we're a little over 2 weeks away from football. And then, man, things are going to start coming at you fast after that. So y'all stick with us.
Yeah, very true. So, don't forget to go like and subscribe to our new YouTube channel that we're pumping out the content, and we've got some exciting things planned for you guys you won't want to miss. So make sure you hit subscribe so you know when those come out. Also don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can find us anywhere where Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can most likely find us. And now easily more accessible with our YouTube channel, where we're putting out more content, and we're going to have some exciting things, like I said, coming for you guys. So, thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Woo Pig Weekly, and we'll catch you right back here next week.